My name's Brad. This is
Pete.
Bo.
And welcome to A Reel and a Beer. Tonight, first topic of discussion, we're going to talk about Blockbuster Fatigue. Who's feeling it, who isn't. Summer movie season used to happen, start out early June, late May. Now suddenly we have big hits like Deadpool, Batman vs. Superman being in March,
Black
Panther in February. And still domestically in the United States, still the highest grossing film of the year, even though we've had Infinity War and all these bigger movies since. If we want, do any of you guys really think that we're actually about to hit a phase of popcorn movie blockbuster fatigue?
I think it just takes away from what the movie's about. The movies are telling a story, whatever that cause may be. And like you say, when you said the words popcorn film, what comes to my mind is this is something, you're bringing the family out. It's a lot of action, a lot of stuff that you're used to.
Yeah.
You're used to Batman. You're used to the Avengers. And I think what it does is it takes away from the individual movies that can come out and get overshadowed from time to time, I think, because they cast such a big, a broad spectrum under a huge umbrella. You lose a lot of great movies underneath. Is that good? Is that bad? That's what we're discussing tonight. And what I mean by that is several movies has passed under the radar. I thought Den of Thieves, to me, my favorite movie of the year so far. Tons of people's never even seen Den of Thieves because what came out around it. That's a classic example of a movie that literally was overshadowed by other movies but was a hidden gem. What do you think, Peeps?
What sticks out to me, and maybe because the second one's only a couple weeks away, is Sicario. The first one, sleeper hit. No one knew what it was, and then all of a sudden it came out, and Oscars buzzed all about this action movie. And if you're an action movie and you get Oscars to buzz about you, way to go.
Yeah.
And now everyone's hyped about the second one. And it has turned into a blockbuster film instead of just being, what feels more like an indie film than a popcorn film.
Absolutely.
The good thing is, I'm not trying to cut you off, but Dennis Villeneuve, or pardon me if I pronounce his name wrong, it is a director known for Arrival and films like that.
Yeah.
And then he came out, which Sicario did come out before then, but he's known for a more artsy style, and even though it was an action film, it still had that artsy feel to it.
Absolutely.
Like it didn't feel like your typical, drug smuggling, gangster feel artsy movie. It felt like a good action movie, but it had a deep, involving story to where there's no true hero, there's no true villain in this movie.
Even exactly, that was everything was gray because the bad guys were doing as bad, if not worse, than the good guys, and the good guys were doing as bad, if not worse, than the bad guys.
Yeah. One of those movies that you really, had a thinking point to it. All the characters were enjoyable. You really didn't know who to cheer for, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well these are okay.
My biggest talking point on this is one of my favorite films from the last few years was a sci-fi movie that didn't get no real attention. Oscar Isaac, he's Poe Dameron, he's Apocalypse, he's in all these major, huge blockbusters. But he was in this movie Ex Machina, and it was, dear God, one of the best sci-fi films I have seen in the last few years. Well, this year comes around, and there's another incredible sci-fi film. Menu, went to the theater, Upgrade. It comes across as this fun, hyper-violent action film when you watch it on the trailer, and then you go and you're just like, excuse my French, what the hell? What the shit just happened? It's not what the trailer sold it as.
Exactly.
No, it's a very deep, thought-provoking movie, and by the end of the movie, when you see it, you're blown away because it pulls an ending, and then it pulls a different ending, and
then a different one.
It does what I like to call the audition, because I think it probably has the best of it all. If you've not seen Audition, go see that movie.
From that standpoint, and the super hyper violence, it obviously has a bunch of Takeshi Miike influence. It obviously has your cyberpunk like Matrix, Johnny Mnemonic, Virtuosity, things like that. But yet, the directors knew how to market this movie. You watch the trailers and you're laughing. you're having fun, and then you go watch it and realize you're watching something that you feel would come from American directors like Rodriguez or Tarantino that looks like this fun action movie and then has a little bit more deeper meaning to it, and that is actually a thinking man's movie.
And it's then overshadowed by all these huge blockbusters that came out in the same month. I mean, Infinity War, Deadpool 2. I mean, how can you compete with those kind of movies on, I don't know, like a hundredth of the budget?
I think the only way to do it is get that cult following.
Yeah.
I think they've cast such big shadows. That's the only prayer you have. And how do you do that? Well, that goes back to the original point is it's absolute fatigue then, in my opinion.
Look at, okay, this is one of my biggest examples. Leonardo DiCaprio, The Revenant. Huge, big budget, massive movie. Finally won him an Oscar, but I'll hold my reserve on whether he deserved the Oscar for that movie or whether he deserved it for another
And
one.
I know where you're going with that.
But
Which one of the other ones?
Yeah.
the other 8,000 times he got nominated. But if you look back at that, it took, God, I wish I could remember his name and I feel horrible for not. But it took Birdman getting that director on the map with a cult classic movie that nobody thought was, oh, it's a joke movie, or they thought, hey, it's about Harvey Birdman, lawyer, or something from Cartoon Network. You didn't think about that movie. You just went and seen it. 500 people went and seen it. And then you find out it's being nominated for Oscars, and suddenly its budget went up. Now suddenly he has the budget to make a blockbuster movie with Tom Hardy, with Leonardo DiCaprio. This 3-hour epic that, at the end of the day, is a very good movie.
Filmed across multiple countries on that too.
Probably has some of the best cinematography I've seen in any movie ever. But it's taken, you're having to suck it up to get noticed, to make something like that, and that's killing me.
Absolutely, I agree. I personally, going back to the main topic, I think there is a bit of fatigue. But I think your average American moviegoer is willing to sacrifice that just for the simple enjoyment of that 2.5 to 3 hours that they get to escape reality. Basically, let's take Infinity Wars, for example. I will gladly hand you $10 that I've earned and whatever it costs for popcorn and drink, $200.
I think
Okay.
it's not that bad, but we'll say 150.
150. Hey, I will gladly hand you all of that to watch what you guys spent $250 million making.
Oh, I'll gladly do it. Infinity War.
And I'll do it over and over again. I think that's what American people does. But I definitely think there is a bit of fatigue, and the movie scenarios that we have given is obviously proof of that.
I mean, just at what point are you just like, this enough of that?
We're in the ropes getting left, right.
Look back at 2014. Obviously, we'll take the month of August. Usually the end of the summer movie blockbuster.
I know.
It's all the throwaway movies, things like that. You take 2014 Guardians of the Galaxy. It was this C-level Marvel Comics team that, unless you knew about Marvel Comics, unless you read the team lineup they had in the movie, unless you read Annihilation, unless you read certain stories, you didn't know who half these people were in this movie. It blew up huge.
Why do you think that was?
And I think it was, honestly, because of the brand they made for themselves, obviously. I mean, that's...
Marvel in general. It
had a fun soundtrack. It had a fun trailer. It looked like a fun movie to take a family to. But it went up against the likes of movies like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which obviously we know Michael Bay. If there's blockbuster popcorn movie, oh God, yes, we're gonna do it.
Oh, yes.
Michael Bay, that's his thing.
Oh, dude, that is his staple.
And
How much Michael Bay is too much Michael Bay?
We're at that point. We're at that point
where I'm actually missing the fact we don't have a Michael Bay movie out right now. I want to see some cities half blown up to hell and back.
And it's the same old explosion that shoots up and then smoke comes off of it.
But at the same time, you think if that movie had not been released, that month would have been the pure definition of blockbuster fatigue.
I agree.
big action-packed movie right after big action-packed movie after we just had, Winter Soldier, after we just had Days of Future Past, after we just had all these big movies to start the summer off. And suddenly, everything's kind of died out. We just had The Rock's Hercules. Yeah. We just had a sleeper hit like Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow was...
2 thumbs up.
Oh, dear God. That was actually an amazing movie. Tom Cruise come off of Elysium to do that, and it still turned out good.
He wasn't in Elysium.
Not Elysium, but Oblivion. That was
Oblivion.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oblivion's.
I'm sorry.
I'm talking about Oblivion's.
I get the names mixed
up. I'm a huge fan of that.
Oblivion was kind of mad. Yeah. But what I think, going back to your Guardians point, what I think drove me to that movie was the director, James Gunn. He grinded out. He did it right. He started out in trauma films. If half of you even know what trauma films is,
Toxic Avenger.
I would be surprised. And then he went and did, his fair share. He did, Slither, great movie.
One of the most underrated horror movies of all time.
Dawn of the Dead remake. Probably, top 5 best remake movies ever. That probably will be a discussion sooner or later. But, he did that. He grounded out, and then all of a sudden, here he is on a Marvel movie, and that's what hooked me. Plus Dave Bautista, because I'm a wrestling fan. I'm sold.
Let me ask you a question, Peeves. Do you think in the future going forward, is there other directors, producers that can kind of do the same thing, kind of come in, tail end? Maybe they're getting some momentum, slingshot off some of these blockbuster movies.
I agree. He brought it up. I can't for the life of me think the dude's name, but dude who directed Upgrade, he stars in Saw, and he's one of the producers of Saw, but it was him and...
It's not James Wan, it's the other...
Yeah, it's not James Wan. It was him and James Wan's college film project is what the first Saw was. And he comes off and does, Upgrade, a great movie, and it's, once again, overshadowed. Like I said, his point is, I think there is spots open for these people that have been overshadowed and now are stepping into the light.
Look at TV. I'll bring an actor first, Chris Pratt. It's obvious Guardians of the Galaxy put Chris Pratt on the map.
I agree with that.
But anybody that knew anything about sitcoms, Chris Pratt's one of the funniest TV characters of all time with Andy Dwyer on Parks and Rec. Now, let's take that a step further. And it's more credit to Disney. And as much as I love Disney, I hate blaming them for all this blockbuster fatigue, even though they're a lot of the blame.
Definitely.
You take Parks and Rec. Or not Parks and Rec, but Community. One of the funniest shows ever. Well, suddenly they decide, hey, we're going to get these comedy sitcom directors, the Russo brothers, to direct the second Captain America movie. And you're sitting back like, that makes absolutely no sense.
0 sense.
I love the Bourne movies. I grew up on James Bond. Captain America is not a superhero movie for me. Winter Soldier is not. They direct one of the greatest spy espionage action movies ever with Winter Soldier. And now suddenly they're front row, Infinity War, they're taking over the MCU. And it does give them a chance, but at the same time, DC, God, I hate Warner Brothers. This much credit, but you take what they're doing when they're trying to copy the shared universe success. Patty Jenkins, a director nobody knew about. Everybody loves Zack Snyder. Everybody loves David Ayer. David Ayer gave us Fury, SWAT. He wrote Training Day. He's obviously a very talented person. Suicide Squad. And we won't talk about that. Patty Jenkins, this person that not many people knew about, gave us the single best movie. Now, it's good that it's giving more people a chance to make movies to get them names known. But at the same time,